Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bearded Bible. We're working through the New Testament in a year. This is day 14 for us here on the Bearded Bible, but this is also day 17 and 18 if you're listening or working your way through reading the YouVersion New Testament in a year. So with that, we're going to pick up on chapter 14, but like I started to do, we're going to hit our leadership narrative first to let that set the lens for the way you might hear or read chapter 14 here in Matthew. This is the Maxwell call out. The law of addition. Jesus faced difficulty by putting others first. When Jesus hears about John's execution, he withdraws to be alone. John is his cousin and the only one who seems to understand Jesus' mission. Now he is gone. Jesus wants some quiet time to grieve and gain perspective, but does he get it? Not a chance. When the multitudes learn of his presence, they seek him out, thinking only of their own needs. This is often the lot of a leader. Jesus would have been justified in saying, "Can't you see I need some time away from all of you?" But he didn't. Instead, he responded by being others-centered. The key was to focus on adding values to others, or the law of addition. So Jesus felt compassion for the crowds and began to heal their sick. One of the greatest remedies for our own suffering is serving others. Servant leadership becomes a solution for both the one serving and the one being served. Now with that, let's jump into chapter 14, and we'll get a chance to see Jesus in action with this law of addition. John the Baptist beheaded. At that time, Herod the Tetrarch heard the reports about Jesus, and he said to his attendants, "This is John the Baptist. He has risen from the dead. That is why his miraculous powers are at work in him." Now Herod had arrested John and bound him and put him in prison because of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife. For John had been saying to him, "It is not lawful for you to have her." Herod wanted to kill John, but was afraid of the people because they considered John a prophet. On Herod's birthday, the daughter of Herodias danced for the guests and pleased Herod so much that he promised with an oath to give her whatever she asked. Prompted by her mother, she said, "Give me here on a platter the head of John the Baptist." The king was distressed, but because of his oath to his dinner guests, he ordered that her request be granted. And he had John beheaded in the prison. His head was brought in on a platter and given to the girl, who carried it to her mother. John's disciples came and took his body and buried it. Then they went and told Jesus. Jesus feeds the 5,000. When Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. Hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from town to town. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed their sick. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food." Jesus replied, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." "We have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish," they answered. "Bring them here to me," he said. And he directed the people to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, looking up into heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to his disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. They all ate and were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces, and they were left over. The number of those who ate was about 5,000 men, besides women and children. Jesus walks on the water. Immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from the land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down, and those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." When they had crossed over the land at Gennesaret, and when the men of that place recognized Jesus, they sent word to all of the surrounding country. People brought all their sick to him and begged him to let the sick just touch the edge of his cloak, and all who touched it were healed. Well, I sure am glad you could join me today. We got a chance to work through 2 days worth in chapter 14. And we also get a chance to understand what it means to be a leader. It means that you oftentimes have to pour into others when you feel empty yourself. But we get a chance to count on Jesus and our relationship with the Holy Spirit to fill us back up. We'll look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow at the Bearded Bible. And don't forget, like, subscribe, and put a comment down below with what you got out of today's reading.